Okay, folks, welcome to the second session on Azure storage. So we'll be covering the Azure file overview of Azure files and the security of storage accounts. So for the Azure files, we're breaking to this 7 parts. So the definition of Azure files, the comparison between files and blobs, how to create a share, how to mapping a file share to a Windows operating system, and the secure transfer required, the snapshots of a file share, and we're going to do some demonstration or overall all of this. Okay, this will not be really a hard lesson to learn, so you can skip if you want because it's very straightforward. If you are really a Windows Server guy, you manage file share before, so this is pretty straightforward to you. Just you have to know how to do it in Azure. All right, so uh, as we talk about, the file storage offers shared storage for applications using a SMB protocol 2.1, 3.0. So the Azure virtual machines and the cloud service can share files, their data across all the application components through mounted shares or on-premises application, and they can both access the data in the share. So applications running in the Azure virtual machines or cloud service can mount the file share to access the file data. It's just as a desktop application, how they would mount a typical SMB share. So any number of Azure virtual machines or roles can mount and access the file storage simultaneously. So I think it's pretty straightforward in there. So there's some common use for Azure files. So the first one is replace and supplement. So the files, Azure files. So when I say files here, I mean Azure files. Okay. So files can be used to completely replace or supplement, the traditional or classic on-premises file share or your NAS device. And second one is it can be accessed anywhere. So that's pretty straightforward, right? It's all the I think the popular operating systems like Windows OS, Linux, you can directly mount the Azure file share wherever they're in the world, as long as they have access to the internet. But for our scope here, we only do the one for Windows. And lift and shift. So the Azure files make it easy to lift and shift applications to the cloud, and that expect the file share to store file application or use the data. And the file sync. The file sync can, be replicated with Azure file sync to Windows Server, either on-premise or in the cloud, and for performance and distributed caching of the data where it's being used. So you can treat this as OneDrive in a way. So that's how actually OneDrive works. And the shared applications is storing the shared application settings, for example, in configuration files, right? And the Diagnostics data, so storing the Diagnostics data as logs, metrics, the dumps from a crashing event or in a shared location. And last, tools and utilities. So these storing tools and utilities needed for developers, right? Developing or administering Azure virtual machines or cloud services. So that's the some of the common use. But I would say the most is file sync and share application and access from anywhere and all the operating system. So the comparison between the files and blobs. So Azure Files offers fully managed file share in the cloud, which can be accessed via the industry standard, SMB protocol. The file share can be mounted concurrently by cloud or on-premise deployment of Windows, Linux, OS. Additionally, the Azure file shares can be cached on Windows servers with the Azure File Sync, so they can access the data faster. And sometimes it's difficult to decide when to use the file share instead of blobs or disk shares. So just review the table and their different features. So I won't just read out the tables, so you can save this to your benefit so you can access them anytime you want. So other discrete, the other features that there are difference between these two when you're selecting Azure files, for example. So Azure files are true directory objects, right? So, well, the Azure blobs are only a namespace, and Azure files can be accessed through file share. Well, blobs are accessed through a container. Remember, we have to create a container first to upload the blob. We cannot just have a blob. You can have a unlimited blob, but you need to have a container first. And Azure files provide the shared access across multiple virtual machines, uh, you know, and Azure disks are exclusive to a single virtual machine, right? That's the difference. So the disk you create, well, you create a virtual machine. If you remember that step, right? You select a standard SSD, standard HDD, premium SSD. That is dedicated to that VM. The other VM, even in the same domain or resource group or region, whatever, that machine cannot access the other machine's disk. Okay, but the Azure files, they can be shared. So it's if you don't share, it's like a OneDrive to you. If you share, it's like a SharePoint synced through OneDrive. SharePoint site synced through OneDrive. You can treat it that way. All right. So I won't. This is pretty straightforward, right? So you can create a file shared from the portal. So let me open my right here. So I have one here already, which is have a file share. So, but we can create a new one just in case. So you can create a new file share. It's just two steps. You give it a name, right? It's a new share quota. So how many gigabytes you want. You don't have to worry that if you put 100 gigabytes or 1000 gigabytes here, it's charge you a lot of money. Remember, the money is only charged when there are throughput through this file share, right? So we can just quickly give it a 5 gigabytes, and that's it. Very simple, right? So the PowerShell way to do that is you store the storage account name and the storage account key to this storage context, and you provision the share from there. Okay, the name here is the logs, right? The file share name is logs. So you may ask how this is very straightforward, so I won't demonstrate this one, but I will just tell you where to find out those. So we close this. Oops. We open the blade for this storage account, and let's see what it wants. The account name is AZ-103 backup in this case. The storage account key, oops. So it's here. You click access key, use key 1 to do the provisioning. So someone asked if I can use key 2. Now in this case you need key 1. All right, key 2 is a backup key, right? So that's the way you provision it. Okay. So yeah, we can quickly do this. So let me just open my PowerShell. Let it authenticate. All right, let's type the storage contest equals new AZ storage account name AZ-103 backup, and the storage account key. Let me copy key 1. Made a typo, I think. Okay, I made a typo here. Let me correct that. Okay, and we provision the share. So share equals new share name. We give it a different name, right? So it's demo logs, right? Okay, I made another typo. oops, sorry, I put in a different screen again. So one thing I do love about the cloud share is because when you are copying anything, this doesn't go away, right? So unlike if you only have one desktop on your screen, so when you click somewhere else, it just goes away. It doesn't ping to the dashboard, ping to your current view. So okay, it's being created. We go to the files. So the new share, sorry, the demo logs has been provisioned with 5 terabytes of data, you see. So you have to manually specify its gigabytes, but the default is 5 terabytes for you. All right. You don't mind agreeing. I just keep making typos when I do this. All right. So I guess I don't know English that well, huh? Okay, we jump back to our PowerPoint. And yeah, so something you have to know when you are creating this, doesn't matter if you're in PowerShell or using the UI. So it must be, the name must be a valid DNS name, and the name must start with a letter or a number and contains only letter numbers and dash. And every dash character must be immediately preceded and followed by a letter or number. You cannot have another dash following that. And they must be lowercase and must be from 3 or 6 to 63 characters long. So that's some of the things you have to keep in mind. But seldom I saw people run into problem like this. But I think the most common one is you have to use lowercase. Okay. So as for how to mount the share, it's also very easy, right? So you just use uh, the name. Sorry, I forgot the name of that tabs. I have to check again. So, oh, it's map network drive, right? So that option to mount your drive. So you can choose a letter you want and just ensure the port 445 is open so you can mount your drive, right? So I'm not going to demonstrate this as well. I know the demo is in the module it says in the last, but I will just do everything along the demo. All right, so I have this beautiful Windows Server machine here. So let me close this and yeah, close this as well. So you just map network drive. So the ladder must be the same, all right? So yes, for where you get everything. So we close this, we go back to the one that has something inside. So just try upload anything to here, right? Make sure you have a file there. So I have one that's 20 KB large. So we don't click into this file, we click the connect button. So notice this will be generated, right? Don't bother. So by the time you saw this video, I have already purged everything. So don't try to access my capture file. So you can choose any letter you want. So if you change the letter here, this will also change. But anyway, let me copy this to show you what's inside. Okay, so first it was test the connection to see whether the port 445 is open and can access this thing. So this thing is what? This thing you can notice it's the same as this one, right? That's your network location, right? Just make sure you can access this. 445 is because we're using SMB, right? That's why port 445 is required. And it's simply pass along the key and the username and password to access it. For example, we can see here the username user is Azure. It must be started with Azure, and your storage account name in this case is AZ-103 backup. And the password is simply the key one. So if you do the comparison here, let me, okay, I just am hesitant whether I close this or not. So I'm a guy who try to avoid as much trouble as I wanted. Now you can compare this is the same key, right? BP9WNU10 something XD1. Yeah, that's the same. All right, it's a primary key. Okay, so we jump back to, let me put this a different screen and jump back to my Windows Server. So it's in the folder you put in this share. So that's the directory of the share. All right, and you use a different credential. So click Finish. You can see it's already populated, right? So I'm gonna copy the key. which is your password, and then click OK. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. All right, fantastic. You can see this one is here. It's my, actually I don't know what this picture is. Okay, so it's one of the picture I captured during the demos in the previous sessions. Okay, so here you go. So that's how you mount the share, right? So you can see it's here, right? It's my logs. The name of the share is logs. So let's dismount that. Okay, so very straightforward, right? So we'll talk now the secure transfer required, right? So the secure transfer option enhances the security of your storage account by only allowing requests to the storage account using the secure connection. For example, when you are calling the REST APIs to access your storage accounts, you must connect using the HTTPS. And any request using HTTP will be rejected when the secure transfer required is enabled. We are using the Azure file service connection without encryption will fall, including the SMB 2.0, SMB 3.0 without encryption, and some versions of the Linux SMB client as well. Okay, so because Azure Storage doesn't support HTTPS for custom domain names, so this option is not applied when using a custom domain name. So this one you need to keep in mind, keep a note there. Okay. Now we talk about the file share snapshots. So similar to your, let's say put it a non-simple IT word is it's like a version. So if putting IT word, you know all the snapshots in for images and everything, it's the same. So it keeps the version of the current snapshot, so you can restore it later if you want. Right. So they capture the share state at that point in time. So the snapshot is a point in time read-only copy of your data at that time. So the snapshot capability provided at the file share level. So the retrieval is provided at the individual file share level. And to allow for restoring your individual files, you cannot delete a share that has share snapshots unless you delete all the share snapshots first. The share snapshots are incremental in nature. Only the data that has changed after your most recent share snapshot is saved. So this minimizes the time required to create the share snapshots and save on the storage costs. Even though the share snapshots are saved incrementally, you need to retain only the most recent share snapshots in order to restore the share. I think that makes sense to you, right? But again, so this is where it's different than the version, because the version you might want to keep all the versions, but for this one you might want just to keep the most latest snapshots. So when to use the snapshots, right? So some of the cases are protection against application error and data corruption. So sometimes the application that use the file share performs operations like writing, reading, storing, transmitting, processing, all those, right? If an application is misconfigured somehow or used intentionally as a bug or something, the accidental overrides or damage can happen to few blocks in your share. So to help protect against those scenarios, so you can take a snapshots before deploy any new application code. So if a bug or application error is introduced with the new deployment, you can go back to the previous version and restore that. Next one is protect against accidental deletion or unintended changes. So imagine you are working on a text file or a file share. After text being closed, you choose the ability to undo your changes. So you lose the ability to undo your changes. Now do you choose? Sorry, my. So in this case, you need to recover the previous version, right? That's obvious. And the general backup purpose. So you create a file share. You can periodically create the shared snapshots of the file share to use it for data backup. Actually, that's why my storage account names Azure 103 backup. That's because I was doing a demo earlier for other people. So share snapshots when taken periodically helps maintain previous versions of data, then can be used for future audit requirements or DR purpose. So we're gonna jump back to the portal. We close this. I always forgot the Azure Blade thing. So we go to the file. We click into our logs, right? So you can see there's a view snapshot. I think I have one. Yes, I created one yesterday or day before yesterday. So let me close this. Right. So you can create another snapshot. It's very fast because these are 20 terabytes of data. So if you view snapshots again, there are two. Right, but again, this is the picture, and I simply didn't change the picture. So there's nothing new there. So unless the text file, you can see actually what's been happening. Right, you can add a snapshot as well, add another one. So from here, you can do it. So yeah, you can download, you can restore it, restore file name, you can override the existing file. So whatever way you choose to be. Okay, close this again. So jump back to the PowerPoint. So we're gonna now demonstrate how to mount the file share we saw earlier using PowerShell, right? We saw that how to do it using the portal, not really the portal and the on-premise environment. So we're gonna show how to do this in PowerShell. So I have already written uh, the code here. So it's quite similar or very much similar to the one you found on docs.microsoft.com. So you can either way you can use that one instead of mine because I think theirs might be more professional. Okay, so first you need to log into your Azure account, obviously. So we supply the resource group name, storage account name, the file share name, all this, and we create the share and we mount the share. So you can see from here it's very similar to it's not similar. This is the code that was in the portal we saw earlier. So that's this part I copied, right? That's the same code actually. Actually, that's the code that's among the share. So put it that way. But anyhow, let's just uh, run this, and we open here to make sure we have no drives. Oh, I think I delete that. But anyhow, so maybe it's not clear, but anyway, you saw that this one has been added, right? And I have the files within. So I should have deleted anyway, but it looks like I haven't purged my previous installation. So after this, yeah, you might want to just remove it, right? So using the PowerShell to remove the drive. PS drive name Z. All right, so it should be removed now. If I refresh. Anyway, let's just give it a couple seconds. But that's the code you need to do this, to mount the file share. Okay, I prefer, actually, to be honest, I prefer using the portal. The portal, the UI, it's much simpler because the code you have to make sure everything is correct. You don't do anything wrong here uh, to uh, to do this operation. Okay, now let's jump back to our PowerPoint. So we're gonna do the storage security part. So a couple of things we have to do here, right? Storage security. One is encryption. So the encryption means all the data read into Azure storage is automatically encrypted using the storage service encryption. And authentication. So authentication is the Azure Active Directory, so AAD, and the role-based access control, RBAC, are supported for the Azure storage for both resource management operations and data operations, like the assign the RBAC roles to it, or Azure etiquette integration, things like this, and the data transit, right? So data can be secured in transit between an application and Azure by using the client-side encryption, like the HTTPS or SMB 3.0, and the disk encryption. OS and data disks used by Azure virtual machines can be encrypted using the Azure disk encryption and shared access signature. Actually, this is the one we're most focusing on and also be part of the exam. So it's a delegate access to the data objects in Azure storage, which use the key generated by the shared access signature. Right. So the shared access signature. So it provides the delegate access to the resource, so you can choose what access the person has at which given time. Okay, and to do, and then this grants you the opportunity to not share your storage account keys. That's the primary key we has, and you know the power of the storage account keys. If they have the key, they can create and delete and create any shares they want or access any share at any given time if they have the key. So this grants you to not share your keys. So the SAS also delegates access to resource in one or more of the storage services like blobs, queues, tables, and file share services. Here we focus on the file, but just to keep in mind the other storage types are also in the range of SAS as well. Okay. Although the SAS delegates access to a resource uh, in one of the services. Okay, so there are two types of SES. So there is the account and service. So not really two types, it's on different levels, account level or service level. The account SES delegates access to the resource in one or more of the storage services. The service level, the SES delegates access to a resource in just one of the storage services, either blob, queue, tables, or file share. So that's what it means actually for this talking point. Right. To configure this, it's again, you have to specify a lot of things. So first is the permission level. So it's either for read or write or delete and copy and all that. So you can select full permission. You can check all the boxes if you want, and the time for it has access. So you can specify up to the seconds which the person has the access. And also the allowed IP address, you can block or allow certain IP address, so it's burst, for your internal external network. And allowed, of course, we prefer to use HTTPS and the signing key, which key. So it's key one. Now you can see we have the option to use key two. So after you provision all those, you can click generate the blob SAS token and URL. It will grant you the access token and the URL to access that. Before I actually jump into the demo, I need to have one more slide I need to talk about. So the SES, not really SAS. So SES is assigned the URI that points to one or more storage resources, right? In this format. So you can see in this format, right? So you have your how do you say this? The account, the access account, storage account URI, and the time you specify to access, right? 2015 April 5th, so until 2015 April 29th on this time. So that's yeah, the time for it to have access. And the allowed IP address is this one, and using HTTPS, and the key within. So that's uh, actually the URI of this the token you generate, which is after you click the generate button. Okay, let's jump into the account. So where is that? It's here you have one access policy. You can add a policy. So we don't do this now, just because it's in the description. So you can choose I forgot the shared access signature. Yeah, I always have mine. It's a yellow sign. So anyway, here's it's a little bit different than the one you saw earlier than in the PowerPoint because the has updated over time, right? So you can choose which you allowed. So you can choose it's only allowed to the file. And resource type is service, container, object. So I'm gonna allow everything. Work permission is read, write, delete, list, or create. So leave everything default. So I'm gonna allow it to connect during this time. And I mean UTC +8, which is current time zone. Okay. We don't do this, and using key 1 and click generate. All right, so it will be generated as you saw. So they can use this one to access. Right, let me just put into this. Oops. Right, so here you can see it's the URI of this storage account. It's granted. Okay. And the more importantly, I have to say is uh, so if you have the Azure Storage Explorer, so this also gives you the opportunity uh, to use actually the URI. Let's put in here display name 001. Okay, so we click connect. Did I click connect? Okay, I clicked. Okay, so the 001. Okay, it's this one. So see, only files. I don't have the other things. So it's the 3 file share quit, and this one has the snapshots, as you saw. So anyway, that's the demo for you. So okay. So there's a table. Give you briefly on talking about what each one means here. So if you're not clear, or in case I said something wrong, because I don't normally use this, you can follow this table to get a clear idea of which one is what, right? And use this to customize your own. Yeah. Okay. So yeah. So we done this. I'm afraid another one is on the service level. So let me go to my file share logs. Okay, that's on the service level. So give it a name. So uh, service demo permission read, right? This list everything. So okay, save. All right, that's the service level policy for you. Okay. So we could talk about a service encryption. Actually, the encryption here, put it simple, it's using the Azure Key Vault. Azure Key Vault will be covered in a later module. I think 5 or 8 modules from now. This is module 3 at the moment. So we don't have to know too much about it. Just keep in mind it's using Azure Key Vault. Uh, so this one enabled for all the new or existing storage accounts you have, and you cannot disable that once you enable that because your data is secured by default. You don't need to modify your code applications. So in case you worry that you have to do additional settings after you enable that. Okay. So the SSE, in short, storage service encryption for data at rest, helps you to protect your data to meet your compliance requirements within your organization. So this feature With this feature, the Azure Storage Platform automatically encrypts your data before persisting it to Azure management disks, Azure blobs, queues, and tables, all that. So, and decrypts the data before retrieval. So you don't have to handle anything. The handling of the encryption and REST decryption and key management in storage service encryption is transparent to user. And all data relating to the Azure Storage Platform is encrypted through the 256 bits AES encryption, one of the, as they say, one of the strongest block cipher available there is. Okay, and this is really popular now. So Microsoft internally is using this, not really internally. So customer-facing side for all the CSS team, when they now when they ask for credential from the customer, the key vault is what they use actually. This is because the GDPR. That's why they cannot just ask you, send me the password or tell me the password on the phone, or put the password in a Excel file, Word file, and then encrypt the file and send me the password in another way. So all that cannot be done. They have to do this with a different way, which is the Azure Key Vault. Okay. And yeah, so to use the customer management keys with the SSE, you can either create a new key vault and the key, or you can use the existing key in the key vault you have. So the storage account and the key vault must be in the same region, but they can be in different subscription. So yeah, but I rarely store that's in different subscription, right? It's normally within the same region. It's enough. Okay. Same subscription is enough. And the key vault can also be used to store BitLocker keys as well, if you prefer. Even though we know BitLocker harm your drawing, but yeah, you can put your keys here, because sometimes when you are changing domains, right, for a merge or any operations, you have to the BitLocker always prompt for you to, okay, you need to save your key somewhere. Sometimes I saw people just taking a picture of that key, save it on their phone, or they save it in a notepad, copy to your USB drive. Okay, that way it's acceptable, but taking a picture, I don't think that works, because you have to, again, typing all the keys, right? It's troublesome. You can just copy and paste if you are upload them to the key vault, right? So yeah, if you prefer, you can tell your user to use the Azure Key Vault to manage their encryption keys. So you can, in the Key Vault, you can create your own encryption keys and store them in the Key Vault, or you can use Azure Key Vault APIs to generate encryption keys. Either way, so use the custom keys, give you more flexibility and control when you are trying to do any of the creating, displaying, auditing, routing, all these actions. So some of the best practices. Uh, I don't really want to read all those benefits in detail. Tell you all the benefits in detail. So just remember, so something you should know, some risks, right? So when you use the shared access signature in your applications, you need to be aware of two risks. If SAS is leaked, right? If your shared access signature is leaked, it can be used by anyone who obtain it, which can potentially compromise your storage account, because you know what's in the SAS, right? And the second one, if access provided to a client application expires and the application is unable to retrieve a new SAS from your service, then the application function will be down in a way, right? So that makes sense. That's two of the risks you should know. So some recommendations here for the best practice. So always use HTTPS to create or distribute the SAS. So if SAS is passed over the HTTP and intercepted, by an attacker, so the attacker can perform a man-in-the-middle attack. Is able to read the SSS and then use it just as the intended user could have, potentially compromising your sensitive data or allowing data corruption by the malicious user. So the recent case I have is the leaked key, and they just put a ransomware there. So, but anyway, it's a test environment, so they purged everything. And luckily, that was an isolated environment as well. It doesn't harm anything else. And also, it's the reference stored access policy when possible. So, store access policy, given the option to revoke permissions without having to regenerate the storage account keys, set the expiration on this very far in the future, and make sure in regular rate update to move it farther into the future. And use near-term expiration times on an old SAS. So I can have this triggered like for one-time access in a way similar to the other feature in actually in AADP, right? So if you know that, so it's like a one time you just have okay, you can access for 1 hour, right? Also have the client automatically renew the SSF if necessary. So they should renew the SAS well before the expiration, so they don't have any disruption in their work. So in order to allow the time for the retires, if the service providing the SSS is available, if you SAS is meant to be used for a small number of immediate short-lived operations that are expected to be completed within the expiration period, then this may be unnecessary as the SAS is not expected to be renewed. However, if you have a client that's routinely making requests via SAS, then the possibility of expiration comes into play. And be careful with SSH start time. If you set the start time for SS to now, then due to a log skew, which is difference in current time according to a different machine, so failures may be observed intermediately for the first few minutes. So in general, set the start time to be at least 50 minutes in the past, or don't set it at all, which will make it valid immediately in all cases. So the same generally applies to expiration time as well. So you put it 15 minutes of log, either later or yeah, just put it later. And be specific with the resource to be accessed. The security best practice to provide a user with the minimum required privileges. And understand that your account will be built for any usage, including that done with SAS. So you provide write access to a blob. A user may choose to upload a 200 gigabytes blob. So if you've given them read access as well, they maybe choose to download at 10 times. So maybe 2 terabytes of increase. So that's 2 terabytes of cost for you. We remember that's 0.0058 cents dollars per gigabyte. So yeah, it's quite a lot again. So yeah, so again, provide them with limited permissions and validate the data written using the SAS. When the client application writes data to your storage account, keep in mind that there can be problems with that data. So if your application requires that data to be validated or authorized before it is ready to use, you should perform this validation after the data is written and before it's used by your application. So this operation also provides against corruption or malicious data being written to your account. So either by a user who has properly acquired the assets or by a user who acquired this by a legal SAS. Right, so all those are the best practices. So I'm probably gonna post all this details for each one written here. It's to a different blog, so you can access that and understand it because it's not really well described in docs.microsoft.com at this moment yet. So the demonstration for this I already done. So if you are still recall, that's one we did here. So you choose the one here for SS URI. Connect string, actually this one, I do the demo because I done the demo for this in the previous session. So it's the same thing. Okay. And someone asked if I can generate a SAS here. So you can see there's the manage access policy, right? So it's here, right? Manage access policy. So again, yeah. So you can add it's read, create, write, delete access and time zone. So you can create one here as well. Okay. All right. So that's our session for this storage account. So next one, we are introducing the most important one in Azure, which is the Azure Virtual Network.